Okay, the hour being says 6:59. We're going to say 7 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order. Councilman Zimmerman, what does that sign behind you say?
Well, that is the national gold winner for the Parks and Rec Department. That is the highest award in the nation. And that's here at Reed River.
Very good. And we're all very proud of that. If we could have the Parks and Rec Director, Brad Rainey, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, Brad. We have sometimes unique ways of picking out who's going to lead us in the pledge. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mayor,
Councilman Shuttrin.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Shuttrin, a second by Councilwoman Bushman. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, the first one on the item is a presentation of a plaque to the radio network. And I'm just going to read this. It's pretty simple. And then there might be some people that might have a comment or two. The City of Green River Mayor and Council recognize the Harris family and friends for 30 plus years of filling the town with Christmas spirit by placing a Christmas tree on top of Man's Face for all citizens and visitors to enjoy. And what I'd like to say is, I know just from my own personal experience, my sister-in-law goes, you know, I don't believe Christmas is here until the tree's up. So anybody else have any comments on this? I mean, it's been a community. Go ahead, Councilman Kilpatrick.
I'd just like to make a comment about that. I think that Christmas tree is really special. And for my children and my grandchildren, they just said Christmas isn't coming until the tree's up. And now once the tree goes up, then they know Santa Claus is coming. So I think it's a super, super good thing that they're doing for our community.
Anybody else have a comment? Councilwoman Bushman.
So just kind of want to just also say thank you. And it's an honor that you actually do this every year. As a lot of people know, I don't have a Christmas tree. So it's kind of like my Christmas tree too. So I thank you for doing that. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Councilman Jost?
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks also. We've been here for 45 years and the tree's been up. It seems like since we can remember. I guess it probably wasn't here the first years we were here, but it seems like Boy Scouts put it up and then Radio Network or Al's group took it over, and it's been nice. Just a way nice addition to the city, and it's way appreciated by everybody I know. So thanks, Al, and thank you to the group, all your workers. I know a few of them.
Councilman Zimmerman, did you have?
I too want to thank the Harris family for this and the radio network. My children are moved away. My son-in-laws took my daughters from this place due to their jobs, is what they tell me. And so they're gone. But when they come back to town, as the grandchildren grow up, they look for that tree and they mention that tree. And we live right at the base of it. So we have a very good view of it. So thanks again. That's a landmark in this community. Thank you.
I agree. So again, thanks you guys for all that you've done for over the years and for to all your helpers that have done that. It's just to have that level of community service and community pride is something that we're all very appreciative of. So I'd like to come down here, present this to you and take a picture. So come on up. Anybody that's been involved in this. Oh, do you want to maybe give a little history of what before we do that, Al? Or do you want to do? Oh, I gotcha. Never mind. I'm sorry. Might have to turn it on, Elmo.
You have more important business to do, but I'll take just a couple of minutes and first to say thank you. It's kind of awkward. I mean, we just do this. Steve Core actually was a big culprit in all this, and one day he came to work and said, "There's no tree on the hill," and that I think was late '80s. And I'm not sure how the conversation went from then, but we decided that had to be a tree on the hill, and who knew that it would go on this long, and we're delighted to do it. Not just my family, but friends and a lot of people over the years, and we want to thank all of them. Some folks have put in a lot of work. Maybe 20 or 25 members of our family. Ken Johnson of White Mountain Lumber hauls it up there for us every year, thank goodness. And it's a tradition for us. I'll tell you a couple of quick stories as you've shared some things about them. Very, very quick. We don't know everything that goes on with the tree, but we have come to find out a couple of things that we thought were pretty cool. We know one year a marriage proposal was made at the base of the tree on Christmas Eve. We know one year there was a wedding at the Christmas tree. We know folks visit the tree because they leave ornaments for us. And there's one neighborhood in town, and it's become their tradition. Their entire neighborhood gathers up on Christmas Eve, and they spend Christmas Eve at the tree. So there are a lot of people that get different things out of it. I have with me tonight my son, who has been working with us now for a long time, Shane, and John Cauldron's been with us now for a while, and his wife Erin, and of course Councilman Bushman and husband Greg have been working with us. So there's been a lot of people involved, and I hope that as you look at the tree, it gives you hope for the world we live in. Maybe a thought of what Christmas is all about how we give gifts to each other, and how we receive the greatest gift of all, our Savior. So thank you to all of you, to the community. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Al.
I know we were going to make sounds.
Oops, missing Sherry. There we go. One more, guys, just in case someone blinked. Here we go. Thank you. Boost. And then after. Oh.
Yeah. And we have the next item on the agenda is an update from Climb, Wyoming. If you guys would introduce yourselves and.
Yeah. Hello, city councilors, Mr. Mayor. My name is Katie Mullen. I'm the program director for Climb Wyoming. It's my pleasure to be here to bring you an update today. And I have with me Kim, who is a graduate from a previous Climb Wyoming program. I'll give her the floor in just a minute where she'll introduce herself more fully. But about Climb, many of you know what we do, but we work with low-income single moms and help them achieve self-sufficiency through free career training and job placements. We offer different kinds of programs here in Sweetwater. There are 6 sites around the state. Ours is in Rock Springs. And sometimes we offer programs like CDL, CNA, office careers. CDL and CNA has been in quite a lot of demand, in Green River and Rock Springs over the last few years. So we've done that a decent number of times. As you've probably seen, the need for medical professionals in this community has been pretty high over the last couple of years. We are currently offering a professional office careers program. They are getting ready to commence next week. We have partnered with a trainer who she worked for Western Wyoming Community College, and she also runs a small business here in Sweetwater. So she's put together this really comprehensive office training program. All of the different things that somebody could use or need when they're trying to run an office. They've learned hard skills such as Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. They've learned typing, and also QuickBooks, basic bookkeeping, and then things like how to work a really complicated copy machine that you see in some offices, multi-line phone systems and filing. And they've also learned a lot of soft skills. Things like professionalism, conflict management, communication, organization, those kinds of things. So we are getting ready to enter the job placement phase. So if you hear or know of job openings within this community, I'm going to be putting people into front office and back office positions here in Sweetwater, really highly motivated, highly skilled individuals that I get to work with every day. And so without further ado, I can say stuff, but truthfully, it's actually the stories of the people who've gone through the program that are the most meaningful. So can you introduce yourself and talk about what program you went through?
My name's Kimberly Kellum. I am a resident of Green River for about 20 years. I am a mother of 4, 3 of them still teenagers. I did the CNA program from April till we graduated the beginning of May, end of May, beginning of June. And it's an amazing program.
Can you share a little bit about your story prior to Climb?
So a lot of you knew my husband, Gabe Kellum. He ran the transfer station for Wyoming Waste. He passed away a year ago in September, which left me a widow and single. So that qualified me for the Climb program. For 4 months, I went through a lot, lost my father, lost my husband, put my youngest in a long-term care facility in Utah. And then the Climb program popped up on my Facebook. I don't know why, divine intervention. I guess I had to have an income. I do not have an education, high school, that's it. And I didn't know if I wanted to do this. I was scared. I mean, I hadn't worked in 20 years. So 47 years old, going into the workforce, it was scary, but the Climb program was amazing. It saved my life. It really did. And just the sisterhood of my classmates, the guidance of the Climb people that they brought in to give us lectures, guest speakers and stuff like that. It helped me learn how to work in society again, which has been a challenge.
Yeah. What parts or aspects of Climb was helpful or made a difference for you?
I think the introduction of going from being a stay-at-home mom for 20 years to the class helped me gradually go into learning how to be in society instead of just going into the workforce. It gave me skills. We had counseling, we had parenting. My children were teenagers at home. I didn't need parenting, but it helped. I think I was able to also help some of the other younger moms because I had the experience of what to look forward to as having teenage kids, and just the sisterhood of being in the class itself too.
You had a lot of experience.
It helped me prepare for going into working with other employees at a job.
What has, what have you been able to do with your training since Climb, and what's life been like since then?
So I am a CNA at Sageview Care Center. And I love working with my residents, my coworkers, the management, everything at Sage has been amazing. I mean, I had 14 years of living in a hospital with my special needs daughter before I did the CNA class. So a lot of the stuff I already knew, but I wouldn't have been able to go. I would have had to have gone just to working a minimum wage job. I didn't have a college education. The Climb program gave me the ability to be able to make a higher wage to be able to support my children. And without that, I'd be struggling a lot. And I can't say enough about the Climb program.
And just in closing, I know that those of you on the council have been supporters of Climb over the years in different ways, the many different ways that you support us. I know some of you have served as mock interviewers. Thank you. The support, both like in all the different ways, helps us do what we can do, and lets the ladies that we work with know that this community cares about them.
Good. Thank you guys for all you do, and congratulations, Kimberly.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, item 6 is citizen requests and other communications. Are there any citizens in the audience that would like to address the council on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to item 7. I'm going to open the public hearing. This is a public hearing appealing the Planning and Zoning Commission's recent denial of the Pipeline Estates subdivision preliminary plat. And I just want to let you guys know this is what how we're going to do this. I'm going to allow 5 minutes for each of the parties to give a brief history and update, and then for the appealing party to take a 10-minute appeal in the case. So I want Mark to take about 5 minutes and give us a background of what's going on. If there's anybody from the Planning and Zoning Commission that would like to speak, or anybody from the gas companies that have pipeline easements, I'm going to let them speak. And then the person and the parties that are making the appeal. Okay? Go ahead, Mark.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mark Westonsko, Public Works Director. Just to provide a little background on this application and the process that we're engaged in tonight. The state statutes enable cities to create planning and zoning commissions for the purpose of guiding and accomplishing a coordinated, adjusted, and harmonious development of the municipality, which best promotes the general welfare as well as efficiency and economy in the process of development. So that's the big picture. And then coming back to local, the city ordinance provides regulations for the subdivision of land within the city and tasks the Planning and Zoning Commission to administer and interpret those regulations. Prior to being submitted to City Council, each plat is to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission to determine whether it contributes to the orderly growth and development of the city. And in that evaluation, the PNC may consult with internal and external agencies as they make the determination. So this application in various forms has been submitted at least 3 times back since April 2021. In 21, the first application was actually denied by the Planning and Zoning Commission, with the rationale for that was, Terry, can you give us the plat?
By the way, while you're waiting for that to come up, I just want to say that I left off one group, and that's anybody in the audience that might be a resident in the area, or if there's any correspondence from any of we might enter that into the record too. But certainly people in the area have a right to speak also. Go ahead, Mark.
Description of where we're at. This is the parcel at the end of Riverview Drive as you're heading toward the water plant. Is that parcel off to the left at the bottom of the hill. It is traversed by the 4 pipelines that run through the area. And so the question in the 21 plat was whether the pipelines needed to be in a standalone corridor or it could be part of the lots. The most current application does establish the pipelines in a corridor, but the width of that corridor has been in question. The applicant is proposing an 80-foot width for the pipeline corridor, and the pipeline companies are requesting 100 feet. So an additional 20 feet on the south side or the uphill side. A little bit of history of these pipeline corridors through town. Terry, can you give us the other one that's kind of the big view of Riverview? So the pipeline corridors that run down Riverview Drive date from the late 1920s. We have record of initial easements being across there, and those were established on the south side of town, south side of the river, and at that time, the other one. At that time, there was nothing on the south side of town. Town was all on the north side of the river. The only way to get across the river was a wagon bridge, and that's basically how the old Lincoln Highway did that, and went up through the Hutton Heights area and went up Riverview and then turned up Telephone Canyon. And that's basically the corridor that the pipelines pass through on the west side of what is now Uinta. And the first subdivisions on the south side of the river were around Astle Avenue, and that was in the early 1950s. And at that time, those subdivisions were created. They didn't give a lot of corridor space to the pipelines. The Astle Avenue has a couple of pipelines under it, as does the alley behind the first row of houses on Astle, on the north side of Astle. And then we didn't see any other additional development on the south side. I mean, that was quite a bit of development that could happen over there. Then we see the development jumped over onto the west side of Uinta in the 1960s. By that time, it seems that the city and the pipeline companies had, based on the records that we're able to find, had kind of gotten themselves together and figured that there needed to be a major corridor there, an arterial, that would allow the pipelines to be within a broad median so that that they could be protected and not have any individual traffic. What that did is established 130-foot wide right-of-way for the Riverview Drive with a 50-foot pipeline easement in the middle of it and 40 feet on either side for a road to pass in each direction. The history shows, or the record shows, that it was the city's intention that that Riverview Drive be an arterial that would eventually cross the river and connect to the west end of town. We're not quite there yet, but at a certain point, the pipelines veered up Telephone Canyon and the road veered to the north toward closer to the river. And that's kind of what's left of this, where this parcel lies, is where the pipelines veer out of Riverview Drive and across land. This tract of land was kind of a remnant piece from 2 previous subdivisions, one that occurred in 1978 and the other that occurred in 1993 to 1995. And it's been kind of a remnant piece out there. And Mr. Stanton has come forward and wanting to develop that, and we've been working with him. I think it's important to note that the pipeline companies and all the iterations and that we've done with this, the pipeline companies have been wanting to work with him. It's easy for them to come out and say, the industry standard is no permanent structures within 50 feet, no structures of any kind within 25 feet. And basically a single pipeline needs to be in a 50-foot wide corridor, 25 feet clear on either side. And so they've been working with Mr. Stanton to try to figure out what that looks like in this particular case. The plat as drawn, you can flip back over to the plat, does show an intention to try to accomplish that there be nothing within that 25 feet. But as drawn, it does include that 25 or the 20 feet of that on the south side would be on a lot that would be in a driveway. And the pipeline companies, Dominion, Questar, now is Mountain West, they have changed their names actually since we started the process, has recommended and requested that additional 20 feet, the pipeline is about 5 feet off the property line or off the easement line. that there be an additional 20 feet granted so that the 80 feet would become 100 of clear, unencumbered, untouchable property. We've seen it elsewhere in the city, not just on this corridor on Riverview. We've seen it. We have another pipeline that runs through town, kind of a north to south one that goes up. If you're there on Bridger near the grocery store, you see that pipeline that runs up the hill. There are a number of plats that were done in the 70s that established a 100-foot wide corridor through there to provide adequate protection for that pipeline. The issue with the pipelines is not so much, there's often discussions about, you know, how big of an explosion would be, what size are these pipelines? They are big. There's 4 of them. They're high pressure. But the question really comes down to, for the pipeline companies, because they've got their monitoring that they do constantly. The question is not so much the condition of the pipeline, because they're going to take care of that. The question for them is third-party damage. How do we make sure that no one can get near enough to them to damage them so that their normal processes can bear sway? So anyway, I'll answer any questions if I've taken all my time. So.
Okay, we're not going to take questions right now, Mark. Thank you for your presentation. Is there somebody from the Planning and Zoning Commission that wants to represent what the Planning and Zoning Commission's position is?
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the governing body. My name is Michael Brown. I'm the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Here to answer any questions about, I guess, the process that we went through or some of the decisions that were made regarding this application.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown?
If not, I guess I could speak in general.
Sure.
Of what so I'm only one member of the commission, and I can try and summarize the opinion of the majority of the commissioners regarding this application. First off, I'd like to, as the chairman, I'd like to commend Mr. Stanton as the applicant to, I guess, his role in this and trying to develop this piece of property. There's a reason why this piece of property has been vacant for so long, many decades. In fact, it's irregular in shape. It sits askew of Riverview Drive and has major cross-country pipelines that bisect the property, and there's some terrain issues. There's a lot of steep hills in the backside. So I do commend him for taking a crack, so to speak, at trying to develop this lot. And if I could speak for the commission as a whole, I think there is a general want for this development to occur. There has been some sticking points with the commission that I can kind of elaborate on, but I think there's a general want to have this development occur. And as far as the commission is concerned, your Planning and Zoning Commission, for as long as I've been on this commission, has not been really a rubber stamp type of commission, and they really do their homework. I've really been impressed with this commission for the years that I've been on it. They take the time to go out and visit sites. They take the time to do their homework, and they put a lot of thought and into each of the applications that come before this commission. So, and this one is no different. This has been going on for obviously several months now. There's been a lot of effort put in by the developer, put in by the commission to try and get this to work. So it's everybody's comfortable with the development once it's all said and done. So throughout the iterations that we've seen, starting from sketch plat, the commission as a whole has had an issue with the offset distance or the right of way that's proposed for the pipelines themselves. We have received a lot of information, a lot of recommendations from the pipeline companies themselves. Of course, we're not pipeline experts. We're trying to rely on outside agencies to give us those recommendations. And there's been other issues that I think the developer has really worked with the city well with, and the gas companies with, utility crossings, lot shapes, et cetera. But this 100-foot right of way still seems to be a sticking point with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And again, that's really the standards and the recommendations that's been provided by these agencies that we've heard from. So I can say that it was not a unanimous decision with the commission. So I'm really kind of speaking those issues as for the majority of those that voted to deny.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Councilman Zimmerman.
Mike, how many commissioners do you have?
We have 7.
And did you take a tally of the vote? What was the vote to deny?
Did we have 7 that night? Okay, we had 7 that night. I did not vote as chairman. I thought I would abstain unless there was a tiebreaker. There were 5 that voted to deny and 1 that voted to not deny, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilman Shuttren.
Yeah, when we talked to Mountain West, when you guys discussed that with them and you were talking about their idea of a right of way, did we consult with any other pipeline companies on what a standard right of way might be in size, diameter and pressure? And especially 2 high pressure lines in the same easement?
There are multiple pipeline companies to that corridor, and I'm sure the developer would contest to this, that they all have their different sort of rules and regulations. It seemed like the 100 foot seemed to satisfy all of their recommendations or standards at this location.
And was that taking in consideration what you would call either a blast radius or recommended minimum evacuation distance?
It's a very good question. In fact, that question was one of the first questions the commission asked during sketch plat. What is the quote unquote safe distance from this pipeline that you could build a house? And I can tell you, nobody wanted to stick their neck out and say that this is the safe distance. The 100 feet is from my understanding from the pipeline companies, there is a factor of safety involved in that, but I think it's more of them having room to get in there and maintain or dig up the lines and not disturb third party property outside of there.
And I think I would be more considered as far as public safety is concerned with a rupture rather than just a repair on something like this. And if you look at just a standard chart and you're talking 600 to 800 pounds, you're looking almost 1,300 foot of distance that we need to have from the edge of that pipeline.
Yeah. And I can tell you there was several commissioners that shared the same concerns.
Okay, any other questions, comments from Mr. Brown? Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm gonna coattail from what Mike had presented. So saying 1,300, is it safe to actually build at all?
I am not
If
a
that's
pipeline expert. And again, those questions were asked early on. I don't know that we ever got a firm answer of what the quote unquote safe distance is. It really depends on circumstance. It really depends on the situation. We have pipelines running through town right now that have 50-foot corridor that we have roads on top of. So, to get that question answered, it's, the pipeline companies really didn't even provide an answer to us. So I couldn't tell you.
What would be the minimum number of houses to accommodate the 100 foot?
Right now, the plat is showing 5. With the 100 feet, the 5th lot would come into question whether that 5th lot is viable or not.
Okay.
So 4, possibly 5. It really depends on how things are laid out. The 5th lot would be a challenge. If the 100-foot corridor was put in there, the 5th lot would be a challenge to build on, given the terrain, given the narrowness of the lot. It would be up to the developer to decide if that was a viable lot or not at that point.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
And most of the pipelines you've talked to are state of Wyoming. Is that correct?
The pipelines that run through the property.
Yeah, like the ones that you discussed, the easement or right of way. I mean,
I think the proposed right of way, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
The proposed right of way would end up being city right of way through there.
I mean, because if we're talking about past precedents, I mean, I don't want to go forward on that because 2 wrongs never make it right.
Mhm.
I'm more concerned about the safety of it. And even though they talk about things being inspected and up to date, these pipelines are pretty antiquated. I mean, they've been in the ground a long time and there's a lot of inherent dangers that happen just with something being in the ground for years and years and years. And if you look at some of the statements by the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, they say that the regulatory system is ripe for problems because the government largely leaves it up to the companies to do inspections, and utilities are reluctant to spend the money necessary to properly fix and replace decrepit pipelines. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of documentation out there on things are just kind of under inspected. And I mean, that's my big issue with it, is the fact that not only is the pipeline of we're too close to it, but the fact that it's been in the ground for so long. I mean, we're setting ourselves up for failure, I feel.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Does anybody want to mention this, or we'll do that somewhere along the line? Because they make a definitive statement here. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown. Okay, are there any citizens, people, residents in the audience that want to speak to this issue?
My name is Bryce Castillion. This is my wife, Ashley. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council tonight. We just wanted to, as next door neighbors to the proposed project, voice our concerns as far as safety, which has already been mentioned, but also one thing that wasn't addressed just recently was fire issues that we're concerned about. I know at the planning and zoning meeting, the fire department spoke about how difficult it would be. If you look at the plan of some of the driveway, or one in particular driveway that is directly behind our home, would be a very long, skinny driveway that I can't remember the exact footage. I think it's around 100 or some feet, or 200 feet. So the concern is getting a fire truck back there, and where it abuts directly to our home. I mean, just a lot of different factors are concerning to us as far as safety, because that's our home, that's where we live, and that's where I know it's an investment that this developer's made in the land, but we've made that investment also in our home and in our family and our safety there. Also, from what I can kind of dig up myself, is this parcel was, there was an agreement between the city and utilities and the developer when this area was first developed, that this area be left as that sort of easement for these pipelines. So I don't know if that, I haven't been able to actually, I just know of this document. I have had really a lot of trouble trying to find this agreement, but I just don't know, as many concessions and changes as have been made to try and make this work. Our opinion or our concern is just the safety of our family, basically. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think the only other thing that we've brought to the planning and zoning also is just that those last two lots, I think they're 4 and 5. I'm not sure their number for sure, but just that they come right up to that steep hill. And so if people are disturbing that dirt there, what happens to the end of our cul-de-sac, and just what can be guaranteed that's going to be done. Because I think, the first owners would know of, like, this is a no build area, but as things go down the line, some people dig in without getting a permit or things like that. So that's another concern we have is the dirt and the movement of our own home.
Right. I don't know if you guys are familiar with or have driven up to this area. It's very steep up to our property. And so the digging and disturbing of that just causes us some concern as far as drainage and all sorts of things that go along with that. So just wanted to let the council know of the neighborhood concerns there. So thank you again for letting us address the council.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other citizens in the resident? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I was hoping I wasn't going to speak, and I came to this meeting to listen. I blame it on Al Harris, because on the radio this morning, he told me about this meeting. And so I blame him. And I'd rather be watching my granddaughter's Christmas program this evening as well. But I've been impacted by both the developer and I've been impacted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so, and in July 13th of 2016, there was a property built across from where I live. And it's the developer's current residence. And I wrote a letter. My neighbor wrote a letter. And because we didn't show up at the meeting, it was approved. And I just like to state some facts about that. So I'm here tonight for the Castilians. I think I have a concern that somebody starts digging around that back of that hill and we could have a slide. Their property could crack, foundation, many things could happen. I'm here also for the people that will eventually occupy those houses that are developed. And so here's what happened in my situation. It was approved where there was a 7-foot instead of a 20-foot on both the front and the back of the property across the street from me where a developer's home was built, and he constructed the property himself. He said that district meeting wouldn't alter the character of the property, that we build something that was reliable, that was to fit in the neighborhood. And I do believe that the contractor, my neighbor, Mr. Stanton, is very much a very good salesman. And I think he's very much a very good negotiator. So I think he has some very good skills in that regard. But when the property was constructed, the contractor cut the power line who was digging the foundation. So you've expressed tonight some safety things. So that developer cut the power, had to be fixed, repaired. Mr. Stanton also mentioned that when it was approved on the property that there wouldn't be any creeping vehicles. Well, because of the variance, currently there's cars that are parked on the south side of his property, on the north side of his property, behind his property, but certainly can't be parked in the front of his property because there's really no place to do that. The dirt was never removed from the property. So dirt's just been pushed against the city property, and his neighbor to the north continues to complain about the effects of that dirt on the property, the dust and just several things that have happened. Because of that dirt too, Mr. Stanton flooded out his neighbors to the north and the Golightly family as well. So when you think about that, the city required him to create a retaining wall. And there, I'd just like to say, whenever you approve something, please consider the unexpected, the unintended consequences, the things that happen there. And so also there was, it was required that he was told that his eaves encroached on the setback that they gave him, the 7-foot variance. And so he's required to cut those eaves off. And he appealed that to a commission that I guess hadn't been the appeal process there. And I'm not familiar with local government, but a council was convened that hadn't been convened for 20 years there. So, and he was denied at that meeting and did have to cut back that there. And then I would say the last thing really impacted me, because when the city a couple of years ago redid my street, I had to have my sidewalk raised several inches. So now I have a yard that goes here and then the sidewalk goes up like this. And the reason is because Mr. Stanton decided to level his driveway, and so it's built under grade. So what I just like to say here this evening is nobody's here for me when this happened, and I know the Castilians. I know they have concerns, and I just feel that for those of you who certainly draw a paycheck from the citizens of Green River, and those who volunteer as well, that you might weigh the fact that I do believe this, that what has happened here is, as it relates to the property across the street from me, it was probably hadn't been developed for several years because it was small. It wasn't really a full lot. And now there's a huge home on that property. And the reason was because variants were given. And because of that, there's a lot of things that impacted the neighbors and the people around that. And so I have a great respect for Mr. Stanton. I know that he's trying to develop properties that are that others have seen as not low-hanging fruit, certainly. And he has done that, and he's done it in across the street from me. And now there's a home there that pays taxes, which I'm sure you guys appreciate. But certainly, I would hope you would weigh the considerations of the citizens of Green River as well, and that these easements were put in place for a reason. Thank you. Any questions for me?
Okay, are there any other citizens that want to address the council? Property owners in the area? Okay, Mr. Stanton?
Good evening, commissioners, mayor. How are you tonight?
Good.
So I put just I don't really want to muddy this water up. I just want to stick to the facts here. Mike, you brought up some great points about this pipeline, right? And the 1,300 foot would be a conservative estimate as to what would be the worst case scenario blast radius. At one of the planning and zoning meetings, I actually had a map where I had highlighted where the guesstimated damage would be if that pipeline were to go up on anywhere that we cross it. We all crossed it. If you live on that side of town, everybody drove across those pipelines on the way here. Some of us more than one time, right? So they run right through the middle of right down Riverview Drive, right? And so it's a small 3-acre parcel down there. And as of right now, we own that entire 3 acres. So that easement is technically in the private property right now. So part of this project is to get that out of the private property to try to mitigate any issues we would have with it moving forward down the road. But from the way it works as of right now, I could go to the building department and pull a house permit and, follow a few steps, but I could build a house on that lot and I could put a driveway across those pipelines. And it would probably be a little bit of a battle, but as of right now, the way that the city ordinances and codes are written, I could do that. That's not our intent, of course. We don't really necessarily want to do that, but I don't really want to muddy the water up here. The main issue here is the Mountain West pipeline. It's the one that's less than 5 feet from the edge of the easement on the south end, and it runs the entire course of the property there. Basically, the plan, when we got right down to it, it sounds like I could probably get this subdivision approved if I would just give 20 more feet to the right-of-way easement, right? So, right, as it stands right now, there's a 50-foot easement. And when they say that we didn't give 100 feet, that's not an accurate depiction. The Pioneer pipeline that's in the middle of that easement, they have 25 feet on each side right now, and we were giving them an extra, whatever it was, the Marathon pipeline wanted it 50 feet. So what we did was, at the beginning of this, we just asked W.H. Smith, the engineering firm, after we were denied in 2020 or early 21, we said, here is the DRC comments. Take all that stuff, get it on the drawings. We did that, got denied again. So here we are the third time. I said, okay, take all of the comments from the DRC and the planning and zoning, then go meet with Mark Westonsko and go meet with Amy Cox. And so they sent a fellow over, Eric, to have discussions with them to see what it was going to take to get it pushed through. Because at this point we had a pretty large sum of money invested in nothing. And so we did that. We met with Mark. I didn't personally go. Eric went and met with Mark and Amy. And, that's how we have what we have now. So The issue with the subdivision is that here's the real sticking point, right? Marathon Pipeline is on the north side of this. In their best practices handbook, it states we want no less than 50 feet on either side of the center line of our pipeline, right? So it's on the drawings. That's how it is. That's on if you look on the north side, they have 50 feet. And then you go Mountain West Pipeline, or it was Dominion at the time, in their best practices handbook, it says no permanent structures within 25 feet. It doesn't say that we want extra easement or any of that in their best practices handbook. So that's what we designed this subdivision around, was their best practices handbook. And so that's what you see on the drawings. There is that we didn't give them an extra 20 feet. We just made that a driveway through there. So there's 25 feet from the pipeline to the edge of that driveway, and then the house would be south of that, obviously. So that's really the sticking point here with me, is that's what it says. The subdivision at this point, really, we're only asking for one variance, and it's width of lot versus depth of lot variance. If there is one, we haven't gone against any city ordinances or codes or state statutes with this subdivision. Everything that you see on the drawings meets all of the standards. And if it doesn't, I haven't been told which one it doesn't meet. It's this pipeline is the sticking point. So just to be very clear, as of right now, that property and that easement is 100% privately owned. And this subdivision in it is going to break that easement out. And the only decision that has to be made is how much of that easement has to be, or how much dedication does the city want in that easement to get this subdivision pushed through. Like Mike mentioned, the planning and zoning was pretty well on board. They just felt like we were a little bit close to that pipeline. And so you look back through the pipeline company's comments and they say they want another 20 feet. Well, then they keep going on and on. If you read through there, they don't just want 20 feet. They want us to dedicate 20 feet to the city, and then they want us to give another 20 feet that's an absolutely no use zone. So I think what happened was we started making concessions, and they realized the book was open, and they just kind of went for it and started hitting us for just about anything they thought they could get out of us, basically. But I can't find a Dominion Energy pipeline company best practices handbook that says anything other than no permanent structures are allowed inside the right-of-way easement unless approved in writing by DEQP. And so that's one of the documents that I got at one of our meetings. So at some point, they do allow permanent structures inside of these easements. So I guess we're not putting any permanent structures in the easement. We're outside of the easement completely. Everything that we're going to erect or pour or pave is completely outside of the easement. So we're not doing anything over the pipelines. I think actually we would cross underneath them with some of the utilities, but that's pretty much all I have. If there is any questions from you guys, I mean, I could go on and on about this. 10 minutes isn't nearly enough time to
Okay. First off, council, who do you want to speak to of all the different parties that have come up? Does anybody have any questions or comments for, let's start with the first. Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
I'll just make a comment.
Go ahead and take a seat, Mr. Stanton, if you would, and we'll go through this and get you back up here, I'm sure.
My comment's more directed to planning and zoning, but you don't need to come up. You don't need to come up. I've been involved with the Planning and Zoning Commission as the liaison for about 6-7 years. And I've watched the Planning and Zoning Commission operate and the group that we have as commissioners right now with planning and zoning are extremely professional and extremely thorough. And I would think, I wasn't at the last meeting where it was denied. I was at a debate while I was on my campaign. But my experience has been over the last 6 years that this group of men and women are extremely thorough. They check things out very carefully. And I would think that they have a justifiable reason why they came to the conclusion that they did, even though I wasn't at the last meeting. But I would think because they're so professional, and Amy, who comes to the meetings and presents stuff for the city, is extremely competent in what she does and what she brings forth to the council, that I'm not saying let's do what the commission has said to do and support the commissions, but I think we need to put a lot of weight on their decision on what they've done, because if they weren't extremely thorough and asked, that's why this went through so many meetings, is because of their questions and why they were so thorough and how it became about. So my hat's off to the commission and how hard they've worked to try and make this come to pass. And so that's just a comment I have.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Kilpack. Who would like to speak? Councilman Shuttrin.
I guess I'd like to question, so if it seems we have two different interpretations of what exactly was requested and whether or not we're playing by the rules. So could Mark or Amy give us a little bit of a background on their interpretation rather than, so we understand both sides?
So Tara, can you put the plat back up?
And speak up, Mark. I can't, if you would, please.
Thought I was on that one. So what we have, and Mr. Stan is correct, his engineer did come and sit down and talk to us, and we tried to identify and sort through how we might be able to and work through the comments that came in. As we look on the south side of the corridor, where you have the gray area that's on top of the orange, the difference of interpretation, if you will, is what it means to have no permanent structures in that 25-foot span. And one interpretation, the interpretation taken by the applicant's engineer that we had discussed, was that would be an area that there conceivably could be a driveway there. That is not the interpretation that Mountain West Pipeline responded with. Their interpretation was that it needed to be clear of any structures whatsoever, driveway, grading, anything, that 25 feet needed to be absolutely untouched. Their rationale for that is that if they should ever need to come in and do anything there, they will need that much room to get in there and do any work to replace or repair the line, that they will have heavy equipment on that span. Also, and it speaks to the question of, as you mentioned before, what is a safe distance? The pipeline companies, in our experience in talking to them, are very concerned about their pipeline safety. Every week we get in the mail mailers from different pipeline companies about safety aspects and reminding us as a public agency of their best practices and where they are and where we can get information, who we can contact. They're constantly trying to communicate with us. And as we look at the industry and how the pipeline industry you're absolutely right. The pipeline safety is overseen by the federal government. They don't put numeric numbers on setbacks. They leave that to the local jurisdictions to do. And one of the reasons for that is that as they maintain their pipeline, they're looking at those age issues, condition issues, pressure issues. That's their that's their internal element. But one of the things that they find is that less common than issues there is issues related to third-party conflicts, whether that be someone trying to cross it, someone trying to put in a fence, someone. So that's why they talk about the, lesser, not 1,300 feet, but only 25 feet. Because if they can keep the neighbor 25 feet away, then there's little chance that the neighbor is going to actually touch that pipeline and damage it and cause any kind of unscheduled need for being there. And that's where we got the feedback from the Mountain West after this exhibit was prepared. This sketch was prepared, that their interpretation of that 25 feet of no structures was absolutely nothing constructed, untouched, able to be driven on by their heavy equipment for future maintenance without impacting the neighbors, and being able to not have the neighbors do a little side decoration, if you will, because we see that. I mean, you see that on the pipeline going up the hill, the Colorado pipeline that goes up to the south. You got fences on both sides. It's 100 feet wide. They're 50 feet off. You see folks that are decorating the backside. Not everybody, but some do. And that's kind of what they're getting at, is that with that property line being only 5 feet instead of 25 feet, that likelihood of that neighbor trying to beautify the neighborhood just introduces that additional level of third-party conflict. That is the concern for which those smaller setbacks is defined.
So when we're discussing this, we're talking about not disturbing any of that. That's one of the reasons that we're having this.
That's what the pipeline company is requesting, that 25 feet, that additional 20 feet, if you will, be left totally undisturbed, untouched.
So in the same statement earlier, there was something stated that we were going to drill underneath the pipeline is that not considered disturbance?
It is, but that's also very closely monitored. And so when you have, and we'll run into the same thing when we do Riverview, when we do the Riverview project, and any other things we've done on Riverview in the past, when we're putting in signs, we have to contact the one call, and the pipeline companies will come out. They'll actually come out and watch while the work is happening to make sure that that nothing happens that they're not satisfied with. And if something does happen, then they're right on the spot to be able to immediately implement a corrective action. So when we're talking about a planned utility crossing, they'll have people on site. They'll know about it. They'll review the plans beforehand. They'll have people on site to observe that. What they're more interested in or concerned about is the people who do things without permits. And we know that happens. And so that's why they're adamant about the untouched, ungraded, leave it as it is, don't get near the pipeline, in contrast to the idea that once a driveway is done, it's done. So, I mean, it's two sides of the coin. It's two opinions on the thing. The pipeline companies, their position was the untouched.
And even when permitted, I mean, accidents do occur. I mean, I had a good friend of mine die in the accident out here dragging, and that was something not being buried deep enough.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that concerns me there too, as the topography's changed since that pipeline was buried. So we don't know exactly what we have underneath there. I mean, it's a concern that everybody should have. I just think we're pretty conservative in even talking about the 100 feet.
Yeah, we've been looking a lot into pipeline setbacks, best practices. Each company has their own practices. Some are more rigorous. There was actually a pipeline incident that occurred out in Bellingham, Washington in 1999. And there was a big study done out in Washington to try to identify best practices. The PIPA is Pipeline Institute. I don't know what they stand for, but they've published a document about, basically guidance for local government to establish rules and regulations related to work anywhere near a pipeline, development anywhere near a pipeline. Some pipeline companies have more robust development guidelines than others. And, and like it was said, that we have 3 pipeline companies operating 4 pipelines in the same narrow easement, and they all have different requirements.
Seems like some are quite a bit more stringent. You don't have to dig very far to get more stringent than what we got, with over 2 million miles of pipelines in the United States. And then the incident rate, you look at explosions and mishaps per year. It's kind of astounding when we start digging through those statistics. And I just don't want to add to them is my big thing.
Hang on. Okay. Anybody else on the council want to speak? Or we can wait and whatever. Go ahead.
And this may be a loaded question for Mr. and Mrs. Castilian, and I'm so sorry, I don't know your name. Just Bob Ross, thank you. Just curious, do you want to see development on this at all? And if you do, would it be acceptable for 2 homes or just none at all and just leave it as it is? I'm just curious, and you don't have to answer. I just wanted to ask the question. It's up to you.
Well, it's, of course, we want to be safe, and, you know, our property. And it's just adjacent to that area that, you know, we fear will. I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I feel for the owner of the land or who purchased it thinking he's going to be able to do all this stuff, you know, and that's unfortunate, but I feel like that this is an easement for a reason. It was untouched back when the whole development was put in. This house has stopped at a certain point for a reason. I'm sure the Colliers would have loved to go further, but that's the agreement that they came to with the city, is to stop there. So that's my opinion.
So it's been my experience that probably too many homes are on the plat to be developed. It's been my experience that shortcuts will be taken, that the envelope's always pushed, especially as it relates to Mr. Stanton, and rules are ignored. I mean, I have no problem with the development. I just think I would certainly expect a large bond to be put aside for in case unintended things happen, things like that. But also I would probably say that, you know, I'm not on the planning commission. I'm not certainly an engineer, but I would think, you know, certainly could there be some compromise for 1 or 2 homes or something there, perhaps, you know. So it's not that I am against the thing. I just know that it's been my experience that usually, well, I think I've said it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? I want to bring this up here. Mr. Stanton, we have a letter from Mountain West, which suggests what their position is on this. It's dated December 6th. I'm assuming you didn't get a copy of this yet, or no? Okay, somebody give this to Mr. Stanton, would you? Okay. And I want to read just the first paragraph and the last paragraph, because the rest of it's just kind of technical stuff. And you can, and I'll let you address this, you know, afterwards. But this is to mayor and council. Mountain West Pipeline respectfully requests that the Green River City Council affirms the Planning and Zoning Commission's October 12th, 2022 decision and reaffirms the Commission's November 9th, 2022 decision to uphold their original denial of the preliminary plat of the proposed Pipeline Estates subdivision, the subdivision of Tract B of the Collier Estates subdivision. They go on for 3 or 4 paragraphs, which I'm not going to read, which is nothing secret or anything. It's just technical things, not speaking to what they would like to have happen. It's then the final paragraph. It says, until such time as the intent of these agreements has been determined, Mountain West respectfully requests that the city and Mountain West work together prior to any action being taken on permits or applications involving Tract B of the Collier Estates subdivision. Then it identifies the parcel, whether as a whole parcel or a subsequent division or subdivisions of the whole parcel, on the review and approval of those permits and applications to ensure the potential encroachments encroachments, the potential encroachments are prevented and pipeline safety and integrity within this energy corridor is assured. Mountain West appreciates the council's consideration of these requests and looks forward to working with the city to ensure safe development near this major energy transportation corridor. And the point of this is that again, they are requesting that we affirm the Planning and Zoning Commission's hearings and that we work with them. They don't say work with the developer also, they say work with the city, but maybe that includes working with the developer. So one of the things that's clearly been a discussion of this whole thing is Mountain West position, and Mountain West position is pretty clear. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Stanton.
I totally agree with their position is definitely clear. Just so you're aware, I brought when I did it, but I offered to sell this property or the 20-foot additional. I asked him if it's so dangerous, if nobody can actually build there, why don't you just buy it if it's actually that unsafe? And the answer I got was essentially, why would we buy it when the city's going to make you give it to us once you try to develop it? So, you know, you take a slap to the face however you want, but I didn't take it very kindly. So that's kind of why I'm here tonight, is to, you know, this company that owns, so Mountain West Pipeline has been sold, I think 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years. Now they're owned by a company called Southwest Gas Gathering or something. I took a picture of it. They are an 11 or $10.67 billion corporation that owns Mountain West Pipeline. But the way you read these letters, you'd think they're just some little podunk mom and pop shop that I'm putting out of business by putting this subdivision in. Doesn't really make any sense to me. So I have an offer to them to sell them some property. They already said no verbally, but Cindy, who probably wrote this letter, yeah, she said she would pass it up the chain back in October 5th or 6th. And I still haven't heard anything back from them. I'm assuming that's a no, but I guess, and one other thing that's pretty good concern for mine is can't do anything around this pipeline, close to it, can't touch it, can't pave over it, can't fence. I've got rules and regulations here, piles of them, right? While we're in the middle of battling this subdivision, the city puts up a dog park. And so I went by there today and took some pictures, and right in the middle of that dog park is that pipeline marker, dead center of that dog park. They're going to have a water feature down there. They have a fence all the way around it, and they have grass over that. All things I was told I was not allowed to do with this property over those pipelines down there. That's all been done right over by the horse corrals, you know, in the last 6 months. So when I ask about it, I don't really get any super clear answers. Basically, the city kind of does what the city wants. And so it doesn't really make a heck of a lot of sense to me. I even offered at one point to grass this entire easement. You know, we'll put the infrastructure in, we'll put water to it, we'll put grass down. The pipeline company didn't like it, and then Parks and Rec shot it down. The city doesn't have any more budget for infrastructure or for grass maintenance. So, I mean, I could talk about this all night, but the sticking point is basically Mountain West Pipeline definitely does not want this going in. If that's a fact, they need to change their documentation, and so that it's clear exactly how far away from that pipeline you either want a house or a road or a driveway. What is it you want? Because when it comes to engineered drawings, it's black and white, and they're making it about as gray as it can get, and they're getting their way. So they've got everybody believing that we need to be however far away from this pipeline with a house. I don't even know how far it is now. Is it 25 feet to a house? Is it 5 feet to a driveway? What is it? But it sounds like if I give this 20 feet up, that the subdivision is going to go through, right? I just really wanted to bring a lot of these points to you guys and let you kind of see what, and it's not just me that's up against them. Poor Mark and Amy have to deal with me all the time about this. So if it's going to be a fact that you can't build within X amount of the pipeline, just codify it. Make it that simple for me, because when we went through the preliminary plat last year, I would have, if they wanted 50 feet last year, we would have changed this plat. It would have 50 feet on it. That's not what their book says. It says 25 feet. So that's what you get. And so that's, I could sit here and talk all night, but I'm not going to. So thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead. Who would look, Councilman? Are you-
I have a question
Okay,
for Mr. Stanton. I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the plat here, and it looks like the driveway is the sticking point, right? That's the one that's too close to the pipeline.
Yes, sir.
And it sounds like to me from your comments that no matter what we do, you're going to build there.
Well,
That's what you just said that.
yes, that's a fact. We're going to do something with this property. I mean, there's going to be houses built down there. And this is an R3 zoning. So, I mean, we could put some high density down there. I don't think anybody wants to see that.
yeah, I don't think the question is whether you're going to use the property in some way or another. It's how the property is going to be used and where things are going to be put. That's the issue.
Agreed.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman.
Well, that's just basically just from listening to the conversation that from what you've been telling us and based on what you said that you can go in there and build right now because of the 50-foot easement that's there. And so that concerns me. That concerns me that you have that attitude that I can go in there and build if I want. And I don't like that. And so I just want to make a statement tonight to the council. Maybe we ought to table this. Or my position is to reaffirm the planning and zoning of what they decided. And then you guys can go back and try and work something out where you can put it together. But I do agree with Mr. Castillion. I've been down there and I've seen that property, and I do agree that if there was some work done on that hillside, could cause some major problems with his retaining wall that he has there in the back and his fence in the back. And so I can understand his argument. And those are the type of things to me that need to be worked out so that the neighbors aren't impacted on something like this. Now, that's an unusual lot because it is extremely steep, and you know exactly what I'm talking about because you've been there. You'd almost have to build a retaining wall to stop any problems there. But I'm just concerned about what I kind of heard that you're going to build no matter what.
What I was implying there is we're either going to build with 4 lots down there or 5 lots, basically. And the way it stands now, what I was trying to imply is it doesn't really make any sense that right now I could go in there and build a house anywhere on that property, sans where the pipelines are, right? I could go pull a permit and go down there and build one. It doesn't make any sense to me that since we're trying to subdivide it, we have to, things are different, right? I could build one house today, which we all know Green River's landlocked. We don't have a whole lot of options for houses. It doesn't make any sense to have one house on 3 acres, right? So I'm trying to maximize the amount, not just for profit, but we can get another house down there. It's beneficial all the way around.
Well, I have one last question to ask you then. And I understand what you're saying. And I have one last question. It's based on what Mike said in his comments. And how would you feel if they were building a house down there and it disturbed those pipelines and there was the pipelines blew up and killed the person?
And that's Gary, that seems like a really silly question. You know, I'd feel terrible.
It's not a foolish question.
No, I mean, I would feel
what's the
terrible. There's
concern.
not a person in this room that would think any different, I don't think.
But that's part of our concern.
I completely understand.
And that's why the pipelines want those distances. That's why they don't want that driveway where that driveway is.
Right. And I offered to sell it to him. I mean, we did that. If it's that big of a safety issue, just buy it, squash it. Right.
And did you just offer to do 4 lots instead of 5? Did I hear that?
If we actually have 2 other plans besides these ones, one that shows given the 20 feet with still 5 lots down there, and then one that shows given the 20 feet with 4 lots. But it's over 1.25 acres city lot. It really doesn't make any sense. But if that's what we have to do, it's what we have to do. So,
well, what makes sense to me is the greater the area that you are away from the high pressure pipelines, the safer the development is. I think everybody agrees with that.
I agree with you, but do you think I should be forced to give that property away? Or do you think the pipeline should somehow be, should we be compensated? Because as we all know, ground in Green River's got a premium on it. So
Yeah. I don't disagree with your logic there. Anybody else want to comment on this? Any other thoughts different than what we've got? Okay,
No.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Councilman Kilpack.
I move to reaffirm the Planning and Zoning Commission decision in case 2022-008 to deny the Pipeline Estate subdivision preliminary plat.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Zimmerman.
I'll just say this. Sounds like my fellow council members are pretty set in what they want to do here tonight, and that's fine. I'm certainly not going to debate the science, the engineering. I'm not going to debate what the gas company is saying should be done. What extremely disappoints me is the fact that when this project started, the owner bought the land showing a 50-foot easement. So at that point, he designed to stay out of that easement. Then as he goes along, the targets move. And this wasn't done by the city. This was done by the gas company. They said, well, we want more land. We want more. On several different occasions, he did. So, I mean, I'm certainly not going to vote for this to be built if that's what the council wants. But I'm not going to vote against it either. So I'm just saying I'm disappointed that this land wasn't acquired, that the plot wasn't amended to show the 100-foot right of way or whatever they thought was safety wise in the beginning, so that someone who bought the land could make a decision right up front if they wanted to buy the land and it was developable. That's my point. So I just think that's horrible. And especially if he offered the gas company to buy the land. I mean, that's what you do with easements. I just don't understand that. So I just wanted to make that point. So
I think you probably get quite a bit of agreement from the council.
All in agreement.
That doesn't deal with the safety issue in terms of what everybody agrees is that the farther away, the greater the safety zone that you provide, the greater the safety that there is. That's where we're hung up here, I believe. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any, go ahead.
And I also just want to say, I agree with what Mike Cetron says about the safety of the whole issue. I was at at least two of the meetings, maybe three, when the pipeline people were here talking. And they showed great deal of concern. I think they were sincere in it. When they were talking to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And they could probably build that and get it all built. And say in the year they're going to build it, whatever, and be just fine. The pipeline people will be standing right there watching them, every shovel full of dirt probably when they're close to the pipeline. But what's going to happen in years down the road when people start encroaching on those areas, and they do all over town. I did it. I built over my easement. My fence runs right along it, the whole distance of an easement on the east side of my property. I knew it when I built it. I didn't care. I just did it, so. And I think that's pretty common in town, that was 40 years ago almost that I did that, but it's still, I did it, it's the same deal. So I think a lot of people will do that. And I think it's, what's going to happen in the future, I think is also a concern. You nick the coating on the line and then all of a sudden you got a big leak or something else happens, it's hard to say what could happen. So I agree with affirming the commission's action that they took last month.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Kilpack, did you have a final comment? Okay. The only comment I've got is that there's not a whole lot of properties in the city that have 4 high pressure. Is it 4?
It is 4.
Okay. For dangerous, right? Pipelines and improvements within a parcel of property in which there's a whole lot of residential homes around. It's not quite the same as the dog park, with all due respect, but well, the fact that there's places that aren't done properly doesn't speak to whether this is a wise decision or not. That, I mean, the councilman just admitted he did some things that might. Anyway, any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did you not vote, Mr. Zimmerman?
I'd like
Okay.
to ask for a show of
It's
hands.
6-1 with Councilman Zimmerman. That's what I'm pointing out, Councilman. Councilman Zimmerman is abstaining, correct? Okay. Okay, you folks, if you want to make a break and get home and you've had enough counsel, you're certainly welcome to make a break. Can we go? Oh, never mind.
Nice.
I know. Because mine's marked up. Then I was kind of looking and then I was going to tell you, but it doesn't matter. You can have one for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, item 8, board and committee appointments. A reappointment of Judy Roderick to the Green River Arts Council. The Green River Arts Council has recommended the reappointment of Judy Roderick to the Green River Arts Council for an additional 2 years. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Councilman Burke.
I move to approve the reappointment of Judy Roderick to the Green River Arts Council for an additional 2-year term.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Resolution A, consideration of a resolution officially establishing designation of a bank depository for the city of Green River. This is pretty standard stuff. I don't think we need any explanation. What's that, Mike? Oh, okay, yeah. So do we have a motion? Does anybody want an explanation before they make a
Make a
motion?
motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Zimmer.
Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the resolution officially establishing and designating bank depositories for the purpose of earning a secured rate of return for the city of Green River.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Does anybody need this explained in any way? Yes, no? Okay. Are we okay with it? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Did everybody vote on that? Except Mike abstained. Councilman Shuttrin abstained. Item B, consideration of a resolution approving and accepting the final plat of the Palmer Addition subdivision. Go ahead, Amy. Just hop on up there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amy Cox, City of Green River, Planning and Zoning. This one's pretty straightforward. It's already developed. The existing utilities are there, or work for what is the historical uses of this. So we don't have to do any of the other construction drawings, public improvements, any of those kind of things. Easements are in place for access. I probably could have given you a little more, I guess, so it was one lot when they're subdividing it into 3 lots. This was something that was looked at several years back when they did the storage units. And so if any new development does happen there, it has been noted on the plat and in the resolution that they will have to upgrade to the current standards for water and sewer services. You have any questions for me on that one?
Anybody have any questions for Amy? Again, I think most of us know where this is at and kind of have seen it and all that. Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Councilman Shuttron.
I move to approve and accept the final plat of the Palmer Addition subdivision as a subdivision in the city of Green River, Sweetwater County, Wyoming, submitted by David J. Palmer, covering 4.22 acre tract of land situated in the northeast 1/4, southwest 1/4 of section 27, township 18th north, range 107, west of the 6th principal meridian, Green River, Sweetwater County, Wyoming.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Shuttron, seconded by Councilman Berg. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, consideration of a budget resolution accepting grant funds from FEMA and the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security. Anybody want to hear what this is about, or everybody read the report and they kind of know too? Okay, it's pretty standard then. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Councilman Kilpack.
I move to approve the FY 22 State Homeland Security Program Grant Agreement with the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security pending legal approval.
That's not, we're on item C, Gary.
Oh,
You just moved ahead, boy.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing budget modifications in the general fund budget for the Recreation Center Division in the amount of 60,000, the capital project budget in the amount of $67,702.50, and in the wastewater fund budget in the amount of 100,000 for the city of Green River, Wyoming, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Did I get it?
You got it, Councilman. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved by Councilman Kilpack, seconded by Councilman Shuttron. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 10, council action items. Consideration to approve 2 fiscal year 22 state homeland security agreements with the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security. Do we need anybody to speak to this for us, or we all kind of read this and so it looks like we're comfortable with this one too? Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor.
Move what Gary said.
Just repeat him. Repeat after.
Councilman Berg.
I move
Yeah.
to approve 2 fiscal year 22 state Homeland Security Program grant agreements with the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security pending legal approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Berg, seconded by Councilman Zimmerman. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So it's unanimous. Item B, consideration to release a portion of the Seneschal Edition stand by letters of credit for completed subdivision improvements. Again, I think this is everybody understands this. Is that correct? Okay, we'll entertain a motion. I think people have actually read the report ahead of time and actually know what is going on here.
Mayor,
Councilman Shuttron.
I move to approve the partial release in the amount of $212,000, $212,390 from standby letter of credit number 203567 issued by State Bank of the installation of subdivision improvements installed at the Seneschal Edition.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Shuttron, seconded by Councilwoman Bushman. Is there any discussion? We're all comfortable with this. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item C, consideration of a memorandum of agreement with Sweetwater County and the city of Rock Springs. So there's a long explanation on this. Oh,
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sean Srolickson, Police Department. Green River PD, Rock Springs PD, and the sheriff's office all currently use polygraph examinations for pre-employment things and for criminal investigations. But the three of us currently use one individual from the sheriff's office to do that, simply because the other two agencies don't have any. And the reason for that is it's difficult to find anybody who's interested in going to 3 or 4 months of training. And we don't really want to spend $30,000 for new equipment and for that training. So we've all been kind of talking amongst ourselves, trying to find a different alternative that does the same thing. And we found one. It's called iDetect. It just uses a computer program and a specialized computer to detect differences in eye movements that show whether you're being deceptive or not. It's much cheaper. Instead of having one person that's trained that has to go to 3 or 4 months of training, we can train anybody to use it. All of the agencies can use it together, and that's kind of why I'm here. We've decided that it's easier for all of us to share the equipment and fiscally efficient to do that as well. It's much more cost effective than the polygraph stuff. So just asking you to approve a memorandum of understanding between the 3 agencies tonight so that we can move forward with that. And I did notice when I was looking at the agenda notes that that it says memorandum of agreement. It should say memorandum of understanding. So the motion needs to be amended, I guess. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you, Officer Sterling. Does anybody have any questions? Councilwoman Bushman.
So you're going to have a pilot program, so maybe some of these councilmen need to be tested.
Sure.
Well, as long as the mayor's not involved.
Well, if it's me, it better be in the next week or so.
That's right. Okay, no questions. So I'll entertain a motion, and if you would, when you make the motion, say to approve the memorandum of understanding rather than memorandum of agreement. Councilman Zimmerman.
Mayor, I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with Sweetwater County and the city of Rock Springs and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Zimmerman and seconded by Councilman Shatron. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks again, Officer Sterling. Oh, there we go. Item D, consideration to approve change orders 1 and 3 for the Recreation Center partial re-roof project. Again, I don't know if you guys have read this, or I see a lot. I think you're okay, Brad. Let's have a motion.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Bushman.
I move to approve change orders number 1 and 3 for the Recreation Center partial re-roof project in the amount of $8,581.74.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Bushman, seconded by Councilman Kilpack. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. This motion carries. It's unanimous. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor,
Councilman Shatron.
make a motion. We approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Shatron, seconded by Councilman Zimmerman. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Mr. City Administrator.
Nothing major tonight, council. Just, I'll be out of the office, which I sent out in the update, or Steve had sent out in the update. And I'll get the acting CA during that time here within the next week.
Okay, thank you, Reed. Mr. City Attorney.
I have no report tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you, Galen. Who wants to start? Councilman Zimmerman?
Shop local, buy American. Thank you.
What did you say, Jim? That was so fast. I didn't even.
Shop local,
Ah,
buy American.
okay. Let me.
That
see
was
if-
for you and Councilman Kilpack.
Okay,
Would you explain that?
yeah. Councilman Byrd.
Well, Councilman Zimmerman just pulled his name tag off of this place in front of the speak or the mic. So just in case he decides to skip out in 2 weeks for our last
won't.
city council meeting of the year,
I
I
won't.
just want to tell Jim what a pleasure it's been working with him over the last 4 years. And I'm going to miss all the grief he gives Gary. So that's all I've got tonight, Mayor.
He wants my best.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilman Berg. Very well said. Councilman Shetron.
I'd just like to thank the planning and zoning for all the hard work that they did on tonight's discussion and preparing for everything and keeping public safety in the forefront of all of our minds. I mean, it's not that anybody here is probably wants to stifle any kind of development, but the fact that remains that we don't know what's going to happen down the road. So I think it was a great decision that was made tonight. And I wanted to thank Ryan for once again looking for more of the grants. I mean, that really helps everything out. And then I'd also like to request that Mr. Westenscow, if we could look at the verbiage so we don't run into this again and trip over it. Might be in our best interest to make it black and white rather than gray, so to speak. That's all I have this evening.
Thanks, Councilman Shetron. Councilwoman Bushman.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I was going to say, since Mike didn't, is that Hole and Wall Gang was representing at the mayor tree lighting. So thank you for everyone braving the cold. I don't know about you, but I actually had frostbite on my toes. It was bad. So, but no, and also it's National Miners Day. So anyone that works at the mines, thank you very much for what you're doing, because that's a very challenging job to be doing. You're welcome. Thank you. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Councilman Jost.
Yeah, I just have a couple things. I was at the tree lighting also, and I heard what you said about the Parks and Rec guys doing all the work, putting up lights and decorations, this tree here. Just noticed that a lot of things around City Hall that way, and it's way nice and really appreciate it. The work they did, the weather wasn't the best, I think, when they put up the lights on the poles. They did okay. And then yesterday I went down and visited the animal control deal in their new setup they have for discharging animals, and it's pretty nice. They like it. They appreciated it. And I think Parks and Rec was involved in putting that all together also. And I think it's a way nice setup they have there. Everyone should go visit it, take time, call Tracy, or they're always there after 2. Just stop in for a few minutes and she'll show you what they do down there and how it works. It's pretty nice. So thank you. That's my report for tonight.
Thank you, Councilman. That's a very good idea that we all go down there and check it out, especially given the effort that's been put in. Councilman Kilpack.
There's the sign that you read at the beginning of the meeting, National Gold Medal Award winner. There's a reason why our Parks and Rec department won that. And so thank you for all the work that you do for the city. It's really good, and it's quality of life, and it brings people from other communities to come and live in our community. I want to second what Mike Shetron said, but not what Robert Berg said, and I will miss Jim's comments on shop local, but not the other. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Kilpack. And I'm sure we'll all be talking about Jim at the next meeting, but just briefly, I want to say that I wouldn't be able to get along without Jim keeping me a little bit straight, and I still make all the mistakes that I do. So I'm going to miss him probably more than anybody. The newest tree lighting, for as cold as it was, and there was a lot of people, a lot of the councilmen, some of the staff were there. It was great. I think a lot of people were happy. The library gave out books to the kids again. The hot chocolate was there. Green River Chorus was there. And the Hole in the Wall Gang, of course, escorted Santa Claus down. And it was just a really well run. And I want to give a shout out too to the fire department for putting the lights up on the tree. It looks way better, in my opinion, than the former trees did, with the way that they all change and all that kind of thing. So in addition to the man's face tree, which sets off the beginning of Christmas, this event at the beginning of the month does the same thing, and people are getting into it. And I think I got a lot of real positive comments that people really enjoyed it. So, and the only other thing I wanted to do, since I have my inside on calling the Department of Revenue on the first of the month and telling everybody. So our sales tax numbers for the past 1 month period were $867,775.46, which is $117,775.46 over the $750,000 that we budgeted. So it's just another month that we're gaining, and that I want to reassure people that does not allow us to play catch up of 15 years of not having the revenues that we need to have to do the things that we would all like to do for the citizens of the city of Green River. But we're on the right track right now. And in all likelihood, the next couple of months, because of all the spending at Christmas, it's going to go up substantially. We certainly hope so. And that should give us a few extra bucks to do some things. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor,
Councilman Shuttrin.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Good job, everybody.